have a self-resilience in a metaphorical way that, I could shoot a bullet at you and you'd have a metal armor on it and it won't even penetrate you. The way you think isn't made up by you. It's made up by everything around you, okay? We've been through the process about your subconscious. Your conscious 5% of your mind, your subconscious 95% of your mind. So 95% of your life is governed by your internal beliefs and what's happening in your environment around you, okay? There are things happening to you on a subconscious level which will make you feel a certain way even before you get to the desk, right? For example, you watch the news every morning. They've said 2 minutes, if you do 2 minutes of news in the morning, which is negative, there's an 80% more chance that your day is going to go bad. 80% chance, right? Okay, this is stats. There have been studies in the US where they've had two actors, right? Two actors, and then what they've said is they've picked 100 people and they've gone randomly on the street, and these actors have had a cup of coffee in their hand, and one actor had iced coffee and one actor had hot coffee. And what they had to do is they just had to pick 50 random people and just had to go to them in the street, kind of bump into them a bit and say, oh sorry, could you just hold my coffee while I get my phone from my pocket? So they did that. Hot coffee guy, 50 people. Iced coffee guy, 50 people. That's it, nothing more than that. These people then were tracked without them knowing, and half an hour later people with clipboards went up to them and they said, look, we want to ask you some questions. We're going to pay you $20. We want you to read these 2 paragraphs, answer 2 questions, and then we're going to pay you $20. 90% of those people said fine, because if you're getting $20 for 2 questions for a couple of minutes on the street, you're not normally going to say no, right? We're going to give you cash. They said okay, fine. But they made them read these 2 paragraphs about this character from a book. The character was just a character, and the 2 questions were, what is the first emotion you felt about this character, and what is the second emotion you felt about this character? 80% of the people who held the hot coffee, they said this person is warm and caring. 81%, the 1% didn't matter, right? Because for stats it doesn't matter. So 81% of people who had the cold coffee said he was uncaring and he was cold. Okay, imagine that, right? Phenomenal, right? Just because half an hour later they'd held something in their hand which was hot or which was cold, half an hour later they're influenced still by what they held, and they had no idea this has happened.
Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
When Apple wasn't that big right now, do you know they had that advert and the thing was think differently? So they got X amount of people and they split them into 2. They got one half of the people to watch an advert by IBM, okay, a 20-second advert, and they got the other half to watch a 20-second advert by Apple. And with Apple, it was think differently, right? That was the logo. Then they gave them a test after, a creative test. Along the board, the people who'd watched the Apple one, they did 20% better than everyone who didn't. And this consistently across the board. And there have been studies and studies and studies like that which shows you how your outside environment is going to affect your internal environment. Your identity is so important. What that is like is that's like a thermostat, okay? That is a thermostat for yourself. Example, in this room right now, if I had a thermostat which was set at 24 degrees, okay, for argument's sake, what would happen is this room internally stays at 24 degrees. Whatever happens externally shouldn't affect what happens internally. If this door opened over here and freezing air came in, the heaters would turn on in the room and would get the internal temperature back to 24 degrees very, very, very quickly. So even though the external is changing, the internal won't change. It happens the other way as well. That if you're a 24 degree person and all of a sudden you get 30 degrees in your life, like some people do, your body will find a way, your life will find a way of getting back down to 24. So your thermostat needs to be at 30. Your thermostat needs to be, and that is what we call your identity, right? So you need to be that person. So it is so important that you analyze where you want to be, you create a map towards there, you create short-term goals, you understand what kind of person you need to be able to be there, and then you map those goals towards you and you become that person and you change your thermostat. So no matter what happens on the outside, it can never touch the inside. You've probably come across people, no matter what happens to them, they're just, it's cool. You've got to be tougher. You've got to be tougher. And you've got to develop that armor around you that no matter what happens on the outside, you can handle it.